Hail Mary, that works better for us. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Okay. I'll have to see if I can find the right button. Oh, look. You may not recognise those two, but it's actually Lida and me. It's that would be was taken on the Carmites. That would be 53 years ago now, and I actually remember that outing because I was working on the farm, and at that time we didn't get a lot of weekends off. Anyway, I had a weekend off, and we were going to Tauranga because I had a brother there in that area. So on the way, she was pulling my hair. She used to have trouble now doing that, but anyway. A few times when I was driving, just as a kind of a cuddle. Anyway, I says, I don't like you doing that. She kept on pulling. I said, stop it. And she just ignored me. And so that was all right. We got to Tauranga. She wanted to look in the shop somewhere, and I found the nearest hairdresser, and I went in and I said, cut my hair off. So I cut it all off, and I think she got the message. It worked anyway. But yeah, so there's. I think she would be the same with me. She didn't beat around the bush. If something annoyed her, she'd let me know. Anyway, we'd been the first year we saw each other maybe once every 6-7 weeks, because she lived in Waiuga, I lived in Wakatani, and then after about 7 months we were Papamoa, I think, going for a walk, and I said, do you want to marry me? And she said, well, I like you, but you drink too much. And she was right, we had a few drinking nights, and every weekend we used to get a bit stoned just about. I said, well, you marry me and I'll never get drunk again. And it worked.
He kept his promise.
I can still have a beer, whatever, but I've never got drunk again since that time, and it's been a real good investment, I must say. I had a friend, and he says, yeah, his brother had the same. His girlfriend said, you have to choose between me and the bottle. And the guy, he said, my brother chose the bottle. And you want to see the mess he's in after 25 years. He said, yeah. So, that was good. It was, you see if I can find the button here. Oh, it doesn't work, Joseph. Oh, must be another one.
You push it on the button.
This one?
Just hit space. That'll do. Yes.
Ah, look at that. So anyway, after about 2 years, that's where we finished up. And something about marriage, you have to be, when you do your marriage vows.
Tell him about what Father said.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. See, I'm still... Yeah, that's how it works. Anyway. Yeah. See, we were doing the marriage vows, and it was Father Pierce, never forget. Anyway, I'd said my bit, better or worse. Yeah, I do. And then he came to her and he says to her, softly, but I could hear it. Nobody else could. He said, "You can still walk out, you know." Anyway, she didn't. And was I pleased. And then, we finished up like that day. And the next morning, we were going for a honeymoon to Pekatoa Island, which is, so we had to catch a ferry quite early. So we went to the early mass. We got married in Tuakau, by the way, in Father Pierce. And so we went to the early mass there, and Father Pierce was there, and he says, "Well, who's the boss?" I said, "I don't know. A chance yet." Well, it's funny, Father Pierce later on was moved to Herne Bay, and Lida's mother lived there in Hearns Bay, and 20 years later, and he says, "Who's the boss?" I said, "I don't know." And if he asked me today, I would still have to give him the same answer. Every time I think I'm the boss, I find out I'm not. But that's, we like it that way, let's put it that way. There is a couple of things about marriage, and I think which has helped us a lot is over the years is we made an agreement that we would never go to sleep without with an argument, for the next day. It had to be, we had to be either solved or had to have something. And it was hard a few times, but in the end, it's a matter of, it's always over little things, stupid little things, You didn't put that pot over there. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. And, next thing, you never do what I tell you. And it just, stupid little things build up. And then in the end, you just have to say, "Okay, then, I'm sorry." And you'll find you go to sleep very peacefully, and everybody's happy the next morning because you've forgotten all about it. What was all that about? I remember one time we were married 40-odd years, and we had a difference of opinion, and it got a bit heated. And in the end she says, "I wish I'd never seen you." And I said, "It's a bit late now." And we both had to laugh, and that was it. But, now, I think one thing we have to...
Put the next one on.
Yeah, I'll see what's on the next one. Oh, here we go.
Oh, actually, the one before, one of our grandchildren came, because we got that photo inside.
Yeah.
I said, "That's Opa and Oma."
Opa and Oma,
Granddad
it calls,
Grandma.
yeah?
No, it isn't.
They couldn't recognize us. There was a thing we... I'm not supposed to tell that story, you are?
No.
I'm going to tell it anyway.
No, don't. Don't be stupid.
A friend of mine said to me one day, he says, "Your girlfriend might never, when you're you might never have children." I said, "Oh, why is that?" "Well, she's one of a twin, a boy and a girl. And because we were farmers, in farming, if a twin is a boy and a girl, the female is always barren. It's in farming. But we went to the doctor one day for a checkup, and he called me in and he says, "Your fiancée got some idea that she may never have children." He says, it's an old wives' tale. Talk to her because it could cause a mental block. Well, we were married 8.5 months, and Robert was born, and I had to tell everybody, he's born 2 weeks early, you know. So
And then say the twins.
the old wife's tale was indeed an old wife's tale. Now that's a few years after.
No, when the twins were born, they were all born within the first year.
Yeah, then in the same year,
no.
Robert was born in January.
Yeah, and the girls in October.
End of October, the twins were born, and they were 6 weeks early. So we finished up with 3 kids in the first year. And yeah, so anyway, the family grew, but I think a couple of things I'd like to point out. At that time, contraceptives was a big thing. You know, it came out in the 60s. I remember I left Holland when I was 20, and the church had just said no to the pill, the contraceptives. And in Holland, the general argument was that that applies to other countries, but Holland is also so populated, it doesn't apply to us. And, well, it didn't affect me at that time, but as once we started getting children, people started making comments. And, haven't you got TV? You know, don't you know what caused it? And I remember we were living in Tokoroa, and Lida had just had a baby. I think that might have been the 7th or 8th. And straight out of Mass, and this lady, I said, oh, Lida's in hospital, I had a baby. When are you going to stop? You know, straight after that, I said, oh, when God doesn't give us any more. And she shut up then.
Tell them what Mum said.
Huh?
Tell them what I said to my mum.
Yeah, and then Lida asked her mother, because Lida come from a big
I
family.
was from a big family, and my mum had 5 children
During
the war, so that would be a tough time. And the last 2 were twins. So,
Yeah, that's
anyway,
the last 2 was her.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
and then-
and there was one before too.
And then I said to my mum, if you would be living in this day and age, would you have a big family? And she looked at me and she said, you're all a gift of God.
Yeah,
So that cured me for life. Whenever I saw a child, it's a gift of God. You know, in marriage, you know, how God created marriage, and, you know, how he gave us all the sacraments. So I love all my children.
yeah. But, well, it has its ups and downs, but I think on the whole it has more joys than sadness. You know, when your children get sick, mothers especially worry about it. But when they get better, they're better again. And one thing you noticed, you know, about generosity, I think mothers are very generous. You know, they do anything for their children and for their husbands. It's been a lesson to me anyway, to see how a person can totally give itself. And I think we saw that this morning on that video of, I keep forgetting her name, but anyway, how the generosity of people. And it still happens today. And I think on the whole, most problems at the moment in the world are caused by broken families. That's how I see it. It's a personal opinion, but somebody checked out, you know, the shootings in America, and every one of those shootings came from a broken family, broken background. And so how do we combat it? We just need good families, and it's not impossible. I mean, we haven't done anything extra, and every week we meet families, you know, ordinary families, but they just keep going along. And in the long run, that's what makes this world better. So we don't have to worry. I think it was Saint Josemaria. He said one time, he said, we have to drown evil with an abundance of good. We don't have to have big demonstrations and you know what all name calling and all that sort of thing. No, just carry on. Actually, we had in Tokoroa, one of our kids was in hospital 6 months, wasn't he? Mm. And so when he came home, he had different things wrong with him. But anyway, the district nurse used to come round for a couple of years, I think she came. You remember that? And in the end, she was transferred to Hamilton, she said. Anyway, when she was there, she said, you know, she said, and we had, Peter would have been 9. She said, you know, I was a bit worried about when I had to come to this big family, 9 kids, and you know, this kid was sick. And she said, this is actually the happiest family of my whole round that she'd been to. And we didn't do anything special, it just, you know, kids fight, and mind you, I've met a lot better fathers than me. Not many fathers break their own son's leg, but I did it. Yeah. And it was actually Peter. He was in plaster. He had club feet, and then he was in plaster. And then after a while, the plaster came off, and he would have been about nearly 2, 1.5, 2. Yeah, he would have been 2. And he was playing with the door, you know, but he had the other kids little one. And I said, stop it, don't play with the door. And he ignored me, you know. So I picked him up and I put him on a little seat, you know, like a wooden box that was standing there, where he was climbing on, you know. I said, and you sit down there. And next thing he started crying. He wouldn't stop crying. Anyway, his legs started swelling up. He had his leg like this. Then I put him down, and I broke it. Well, so anyway, I took him to the hospital, to the doctor, and the doctor says, yeah, no, you better get an X-ray. And then the doctor that was on duty says, he looked at the X-ray, and then he says, I'm going to have to call the superintendent. And I thought, oh, well, if you have to call the cops, you call the cops, you know. And anyway, he didn't know how to handle this break. It was a nasty break. But I thought he was talking about the police. Yeah, so you have your moments. Then one day, my eldest son, well, he was 4 at the time, a bit younger than that, was a few years before that. We lived on the farm, and there was forest all around us, you know, the pine trees and that. And one day, we had a piece of land just outside of Tokoroa that I had to go to sometimes. I come back, I'd been there for an hour, I suppose, I'd come back, there's Robert. Oh, his cousins were at our place, and they said, oh, he was going with you. I said, well, I didn't see him. I had to go along the road. It was couldn't see him anywhere. So, anyway, we looked everywhere, didn't we? Yeah? Drove through the forest, and I started speeding up, drove in the forest. Anyway, finally, I come back, and the police is there, at the gate, with our son. And I gave him a whack in front of the policeman. Couldn't do that now, but you could do it then. I said, I told you not to walk on the road. Well, I didn't go on the road. I went through the paddocks, he said. And that's why I didn't see him. Anyway, I felt a bit guilty because I'd given him a decent smack on the bottom. I felt guilty. Anyway, that night when I took him to bed, and he says, Dad, when I'm big, I'm going to marry you, he says. Yeah, so that was so funny. I think he never got over it because he never got married. So. Yeah, now, what, where are we? There must be somewhere. Oh, yeah. That's another thing I wanted to tell. If we, if we want to help our children, and I think that's a very important part, you know, just by observing, we have to pass on the faith to our children. And the best way to pass it on is to practice it yourself and tell them why. You know, it took us probably, let's see, about 8 or 9 years before we started saying the rosary as a family. We tried it when we first married and we both got the giggles and we didn't do it anymore. So we felt a bit, I think we felt a bit embarrassed, I don't know. So we didn't. We did say evening prayers, and then one day a lady gave us a book about Fatima. That was Mary's mother, my sister-in-law's mother. She was very devoted to Our Lady, and she gave us a book about Fatima, and I read it. And then Our Lady had asked people to pray the rosary, and remember at the time we were looking for good stuff, you know, for good Catholic stuff, and there was a bookshop here in Onehunga, Jim Corbin. Some people might remember him, but I don't know. Jim had a bookshop, and I got a few things, and I said, well, this lady, I like to pray the rosary, but I haven't got time, you know. I got a farm, and I got the kids, and I don't know how to get the others to pray. And he says to me, he said, you start, and Our Lady will give you the time. And it did. You know, I started, and then Lida joined up, and eventually... Yeah. What we do with the little kids, what we did was just, you know, let them say 1 decade or something like that. You know, not... The whole rosary gets a bit long. As they get older, they can do a bit more.
My mum, we always used to pray the rosary at home.
But we didn't.
And my mum was the same age as St. Lucy, and because we were living in Holland, you know, that was always very close, so it was sort of normal for me.
So what's helped our family the most? I would say the church teaching, the priests that have helped us, the sacraments. There's always, we've always had good advice from the church, and they've been our greatest asset. The sacraments are a great help.
They always like Christmas time, because then they would get a Christmas from Father.
Then they get what?
Yeah, from Father Christmas.
Oh, yeah, they get presents. Yeah, of course. Oh, this was when...
When Catherine, the youngest, was born.
What happened is when Joseph was born, that little boy, he was actually 3 weeks overdue, and which we suspected that he was overdue, that he was a bit big. Anyway, Lida was in labour, and she was in labour too long, you know, in the hospital. The doctor came, couldn't do anything. He said, I'll have to get the specialist. Now, the specialist came in, this is at night, and the specialist was an abortionist, actually. He was really good. He just felt, he says, look, this baby can't be born cesarean, just like that. You know, and he never queried it, anything. Then That was all right. They were getting her ready for the theatre. And the nurse came. Oh, you want to get your tubes tied and you want to get this done, you know, because it's dangerous to have any more children, especially after cesarean. So, anyway, she was so weak, and all she could say was, no, no. That's all she said all the time, whenever they asked her something. No. So, and then after, a few days later, our own doctor said, look, when she comes for a 6 weeks checkup, I want you to come with her. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, what for? We'll have to discuss, because I think she's had enough children. I said, oh, I don't need to come for that. Anyway, at that time, I rang Dr. Dunn. It's the bishop's father. Dr. Dunn was a very good gynecologist. And I rang him because, you know, she had 15, the cesarean and all that. And he said, look, tell them to mind their own business. I've had women that have had 6 cesareans, and Mark Lorette will know about some that have had more than that. Yeah, but there you go. So he said, no, it's none of their business, he said. And you just carry on. And Dr. Dunn, he had a very good attitude, actually, and people asked him, well, how many children should a person have? And his advice was, 1 more than you can comfortably cope with. You know, and I thought, but it was very good, actually, yeah. If it's too comfortable, you know, I mean, sometimes some people can't handle more than 3 or 4. That it's never worried us whether somebody's had 1 child or 5 children or more. It's whatever God gives them, whatever they can cope with. So, yeah, that was Dr. Dunn's advice. And on the subject of, on the subject of family planning, whatever it is, I heard a speaker once, and that was a Monsignor Cormac Burke from, he was an Irish priest, but he had been teaching at the seminary in Kenya. And at that time, Kenya's population had increased from 3 to 5 million in a very short time, in 5 or 6 years or something. And he said the seminarians were really questioning the church's teaching, you know, on birth control. And he says, well, he asked the seminarians this question. He said, now, look back when it was 3 million people, and now it's 5 million people. He said, has the standard of living gone down? And they all had to say the standard of living had improved. The extra children brings in extra work and yeah, I don't know, extra productivity. So I think they're up to, I don't know what it's up, but it's increased dramatically since then.
Say about your auntie who had no children.
Yeah, well, see, you can't say, there's another thing. My mother died when I was born. It was one of these things that I was the 7th child, and it was during the war, and at that time you had to go and get the doctor when she was due on the push bike, and then the doctor was away on some other place, so another doctor came in, but he didn't know my mother's condition that well. Anyway, I heard all the things probably 40 years later from my auntie, but anyway, she had a hemorrhage, and they were checking the baby. In the meantime, she was bleeding, and all she said is, "Everything okay now?" And they looked at her, and then that was it, you know.
She said, "Is the baby okay?"
Yes, everything okay. Yeah, she meant with the baby, and that was all. And so my auntie, she was still single then, looked after us for a couple of years. And then she got married, never got any children, you know. She loved kids. But anyway, she was all the nephews and nieces, and she had quite a lot. Was the favourite auntie, of course. But I happened to be her favourite boy anyway. And we've had it, you know, when we had the young family, we've had it that you were CMO-king, and things were really tight, you know, and 20th of the month, how am I going to pay this bill? You know, it was just one of those times. Next thing, I get a letter from Holland, and there's $100 in there, you know. And that was just enough from my auntie. And she did it a few times when we had a baby. She says, "Oh, God doesn't give a baby unless he feeds it," she said. And it was true. It 2 or 3 times it happened. Right at the right moment, we got, you know, not a lot of money, but enough to just see us through, and then things came right. So God keeps us going. Now, what else was I going to say? Pass on the faith, yeah.
You nearly finished.
Oh, I must tell you something that I can tell now after all these years. This guy was walking along the beach, and he found this bottle. Opens the bottle, and a genie comes out. "Oh, great," he says, "I can do 2 wishes. No, the genie says, "No, you can only do 1. All right, he said, "Can you build me a bridge from Auckland to Sydney?" And the genie says, "No, don't be stupid. That's a real silly question." He says, "Well, what do you think?" "No, I'll think of something else." So again, he said, "Can you make me understand my wife?" And the genie says, "You want a 2-lane or a 4-lane bridge?" So there you go. And it happens sometimes, you know. That's why I said, when I think I'm the boss, I'll find out I'm not. Okay, let's see what's next in there. That was then, yeah, Catherine would have been a year
this
old.
is when
Then the first one.
The first one went to
Paula-
Australia.
The first one went to Australia. So that was complete. Except for the youngest ones, because they weren't getting enough to eat. The others are all laughing because they've eaten all the food.
Oh. Yeah, tell them about the photo. How the photo happened that they were all laughing.
Yeah, they were all
because
a bit.
It was just before Paula went to Australia.
They were all a bit grumpy because they were pushing each other. I want to stand here and I want to
and-
stand here.
yeah.
And then nobody would smile. And then this neighbour, what did he do?
He came in just when Bert was going to take the photo, and he took his false teeth out. Everybody
And it worked.
laughed.
So-
That's the nicest photo.
That's the house we lived in. Looks neat, doesn't it? But we had
it's
the
funny.
house, and then we had, that's the garage, and we built a bedroom in there, and we bought some single man's huts from Tokoroa, and
Tokoroa.
another single man's hut, and another single man's hut. So they called it Assenville. But anyway, the kids were happy with it, and yeah. Now this
What is that?
is what the young couple looked like after 25 years. That was our 25th, was it?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Was that 20?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. Yeah. Oh, I
Oh,
should
you're
have
going
gone
too
back.
fast.
No,
Go
it
back
doesn't matter.
one.
Oh,
Oh,
what have I done?
No,
you can go
before.
back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was, yeah.
That's when they all wanted to jump out of the hay barn.
I told you she's still pushing me around. Yeah.
I think
That
that was
was-
before someone left.
There was something funny with the hay barn too, because the hay would be stacked up to here, and the kids would climb up, some of the big ones. But then one day she saw the little one, Bernadette. She was only just over a year.
Yeah, I saw her halfway, nearly on top, and I was
She was
too
dead
scared to
scared.
scream in case he might fall down and get a fright. So then
One of the kids reached out and pulled her up.
yeah, so I said, oh, can you go and get her because she might fall? Oh, she's been up there lots of times. That was on a ladder on the other side.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's nice. Right,
That's on our 40th.
that's on our 40th wedding anniversary, yeah. That's from youngest to oldest. So, they do change a bit, those little ones,
Yeah,
no?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go.
And at that time, that's the 40th, so that was 11 years ago, and that was the whole family group, children, grandchildren, and in-laws. I think there were 23 or 24 grandchildren there. Now, see what happens, what kids do to their parents. The only reason I married her actually was she said I was good looking, and nobody ever said that to me before. So. I honestly still say that now. She says I'm good, but she leaves the looking out. And that's them all now, from youngest to oldest. That was at our 50th last year.
This one, yeah.
Yeah. Can't you see his back starting to bend over
Yeah.
and her back starting to bend over?
That's right, it's standing the other end.
Yeah.
And then someone came and said, is that your family with your partners?
Yeah, no, I got a photo.
And then
yeah,
I realised it's girl, boy, all the way up.
up to here. Yeah, he thought it was our family and partners and whatever. I said, no, they're our kids. And the guy kept writing me. He says, pardon? I said, they're ours. God have his done. So that's the whole family as it is now, yeah. Probably a year ago.
Would you like to say something about your girls what are in Opus Dei?
Oh, yeah.
I reckon it was
Yeah.
And then tell them
when
it
you were
was.
I'll have
16.
to... Pardon?
When you were 16, that you went one by one to Australia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that would have... I'd have to go... which one is it? This one? Yeah, well, Opus Dei came on the scene. I mean, the church has always helped us with good advice, and then Opus Dei is also a very good place to get good formation, for Christian formation. Anyway,
So Paula was the first one.
no, Quina was the first one.
No, Paula. Paula was the first one who
Oh,
went
to
to
leave
Australia,
home.
and
To do a
she did the
hospitality
hospitality course.
Later on she joined Opus Dei, but not at that time.
No.
She just did the...
So I thought they
Hospitality
learn different
course.
things what they don't learn at home, and they are with other children the same age, doing something useful. That's why I like the hospitality course, and
Yeah.
all my children did that. Well, after Paula, not the early ones.
I think that what Opus Dei has helped us to show us that marriage is a vocation, just like priesthood is a vocation and that, but marriage itself is a vocation and a very important vocation. And I think they've been a great help to us in that sense. You know, they make you aware of what to look for, you know, they make you aware that a happy family is very important, and I think to forget about yourself. I think that giving, love is giving, and she certainly knows what giving is, more than me, but anyway.
I'd like to tell you something about Teresa when she was little.
Oh,
She was one who could never close her mouth. It was always... And then I named her because I liked Mother Teresa, and I liked the name. So anyway, she was called, so she knew the photos of Mother Teresa. So she was going to be like Mother Teresa. And then she grew a bit, and then she was a little bit older, she was going to get married. I said, but nuns don't get married because Mother Teresa, I said, nuns don't get married. Well, she said, what about Mother Teresa? She was a mother.
yeah. Oh, she had another one. Yeah,
Yeah.
Teresa was last year at high school, and we had a parent interview. The teacher says to me, she's very bright. He said she should do a science degree. She should be able to do that. Oh yeah. So in the holidays, we were walking down the farm, and I said, "What are you going to do next year?" I want to be a land girl. I said, over my dead body, will you be a land girl? Because I know where they finish up, you know.
The neighbour was a single
She was
guy.
keen on the boy next door, but he was a bit of a loose character.
They had
not
different
very.
ones all the time.
So anyway, I said, no, try for me out. I said, why don't you do a science degree? Oh, science degree? What on earth can you do with a science degree? No, I couldn't do anything. I said, all right. I'll tell you what, you can go to Aussie for 1 year and do the hospitality course, what your sisters have done, and after that you can do what you like. But anyway, they had it. Luckily, they had
She
a.
found the shortest hospitality course, which was 3 months. I said, we're going to send you for 1 year, and after that you can decide.
Yeah. So anyway, they was lucky. They had a group of girls come out to Hamilton on a service project from Sydney. And anyway, they asked her, give us a hand for a couple of days, and she made some friends, and so it was a bit easier for her then. Anyway, that was all right. Then, around about November, she rings up. She says, I'm coming home for Christmas, and then I'm going to the Philippines, because they got a service project on I want to go. And Lida says, well, you can choose. You can either come home, or you can go on the service project, but we can't afford both. I'll go on the service project then, she says. So that was fine, and that was the year the Pope came to Australia and the Philippines. Was in the Philippines the first. Anyway, Teresa being Teresa, her and some girls in the Philippines, there were 3 million youth there or something, maybe 5 million, I don't know. But they managed to crawl under all the seats and get quite close to the front, you know, her and a few girls. Anyway, after that, the Holy Father went to Sydney, and of course, they were back in Sydney then, and she was standing there, and he stopped in front of her. He said, I saw you in the Philippines. She nearly fell over, you know. So anyway, she rang up that night. She was so excited. She said, I didn't know what to do. I just gave him a hug, she said. And so then she decided to stay another year to do the hospitality course, because there was a 2-year. They could do a 1, 2, or 3 year course, whatever. Then you actually get you could run a hotel after 3 years if you get the proper certificate. So anyway, she did that, and then at the end of the 2nd year, she rang up. She said, I think I'll go to uni. I said, what do you want to go to uni for? Do a science degree. I said, Teresa, what on earth can you do with a science degree? she had to laugh then because she knew what she'd said 2 years earlier. So you could do all sorts of things with that. And she did. She got her degree and she was teaching for a while. But now she's gone into nursing because she don't like standing in front of the classroom. She's fine on a one-to-one, but not... She said, I hate standing in front of the classroom. So now she's nursing, of all things. But there you are. You never know what you come across. And there was all the...
These are all the grandchildren.
All the grandkids. So each family had their own colour shirt and the number of grandchild, whatever.
Jerome, can you see Jerome?
Yes,
Can you
Jerome.
see Jerome?
Jerome, where are you?
Jerome is there somewhere.
Yes. Oh, here.
Here.
No, that's not me.
Jerome is here.
Yeah, it's here.
See?
It's
And
36.
that's Alida. That's your sister.
Yeah. All right, so just a couple of things to finish up.
Yeah, I think it's time.
We have to do a few things to safeguard our marriage and to help our children, you know. And one or two things, first of all, help them, give them the right reading things. And Michael Loretz will know what to teach them at schools. Keep an eye on that. But the family rosary has been a great help to us. Keep an eye on what they dress. You know, that's quite important. One of my daughters was going to the neighbours one day and she had short shorts on. And she was about, she would have been 15, 16. I said, you're not wearing that going to the neighbours. Why not? I said, well, if you wear that, they're not looking at you, they're only looking at your legs. Anyway, she did get changed. But, yeah, no, it's good to point out what happens if you don't dress properly. I've seen it, because it brings the attraction from the actual girl down to their bodies. You know, that's if you don't. And it's. I know one of my daughters, her girls are always properly dressed, and it saves a lot of problems. I don't say they have to go back to the 1800s with skirts to the ankles, but no, just keep an eye on the fashion and keep an eye on what we watch on TV. Just our kids know if something's on and it's not right, it goes off. There's just a few things. They might growl at it, although ours didn't much, not about that sort of thing. They growled enough about other things. But no, it's worthwhile. I mean, we're doing it for the love of God, and you can't have more satisfaction than to see your children pass on the faith and carry it on, you know, bringing up their families in the faith. That's a wonderful reward, really. Right, I think time up.
Let's put our hands together.